Welcome to Cloud Insiders, the podcast that brings cloud down to earth. As always, head over to cloudinsiders.fm for show notes and more. Now let's get into it. I'm sat here today with Guy Ratcliffe, Head of Offerings for Hybrid IT for Amaya, for the Managed Infrastructure Services Group of Fujitsu. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And Peter Grant, the CTO of Xtravirt and frequent flyer. Welcome back.
Hi, Ollie. Good
Excellent.
to be here.
Excellent. Let's get straight into it, guys. So, Guy, for people who don't already know, who are Fujitsu and what do you do?
So Fujitsu are one of the world's largest IT vendors, globally based, but obviously most importantly, we actually have our HQ in Japan, which kind of gives us a bit of a different slant in the marketplace, because whereas many of the other IT vendors are kind of US based, etc., having that kind of Japan influence actually provides a completely different slant in the way we approach business and the way we approach solutions.
I've worked for Japanese vendors myself in the past. You're certainly right. Do you want to give us a bit of an overview of Fujitsu Cloud?
Yeah.
And what's happening in that space and what makes it unique?
Yeah, so lots. So we launched something about 8 months ago now called MetaArc, which is an overall brand or proposition which essentially groups together everything that we're doing within the cloud space. And what that does is it gives us the vast set of tools and capabilities that we need to develop sort of new digital offerings going to the market. So underneath that, we have both our partner clouds as well as our own cloud services. So it's, it kind of covers many aspects, and it covers the whole hybrid IT space, and is kind of the foundation and the enabler for all that we do around hybrid IT. So Fujitsu itself has got a number of different cloud platforms. There's older ones which we've had for a while. And then there's the new one, which is K5, which is based on OpenStack.
Tell us a bit about that. OpenStack's definitely something that interests a lot of the audience, and it's a hot topic.
Yeah, so I think OpenStack is starting to mature as a product, but it's still quite difficult to deploy. We've spoken to a number of customers, and there's quite a lot of failure rate when you actually deploy and wanting to create that whole thing in the whole set of OpenStack components. What do you choose? How do you choose it? How do you make sure that it's resilient? What we've done in the last around about 2 years is we had a massive investment program to create an OpenStack cloud, which allows us to address different parts of the marketplace. So it'll go from public through to virtual private and private cloud infrastructures, and it'll also have a product play. But that it gives us a really good base to be able to work on, and it means the customer doesn't have to worry about in a private cloud instance that they have to go and try and work out what projects to use and deploy.
So the OpenStack offering, is that something you would build on your kit? So you deliver it to the customer pre-configured, all tested based on all your engineering that's been done to date. So the customer doesn't need to know OpenStack or know how to support it. It will be done by yourselves. Correct,
yeah. But it's kind of more than that, because we will have a public cloud offering as well.
Yeah.
So the importance of that is being able to actually take workloads. So say a developer is going to develop things on the public cloud, which will be a very cost-effective option, but then move it into a private cloud option that they've got on their own premise. It's going to be the same code base that sits underneath, and actually it will move without any changes to the infrastructure. So quite fundamentally, it's about being able to give the customer that flexibility of moving from public cloud, low cost, down into a private cloud with more secure data centric.
So the K5 offering, that encompasses both the public and the private, so it's the sort of a joined up view of depending on where you need to have your workloads.
Correct. It'll also include a product sale where we don't even get involved, and we'll obviously, we sell hardware as well, and the product part of our business, we'll have a Prime Fix for Cloud, which is part of the K5 offerings. And so literally a customer can go and buy the tin and the whole stack, the converged stack, and take it and run it in their own premise, and then control it how they want.
Okay. And what made you go for OpenStack as the platform?
We've had our other platform for a while, which is what used to be called TPS5, which is now Cloud Service S5. That was based on a kind of a Zen hypervisor, but there weren't a lot of open source elements. And we found, the development cycle was quite difficult to keep going, with the adoption, and there's this balance. And with the maturity of OpenStack and also the ability to contribute back into the community, we've been long supporters of open source software. We were founding members of the likes of the Linux Foundation, etc. So we've been involved in open source software a long time, and we felt that there was a mature time to actually bring this to market and use it as the foundation for the kind of the enabler part of our business going forward.
You touched on something there, and I'd like you to just explain it in a bit more detail, if you might. In terms of hybrid IT,
yep.
What does that mean? How does that help? Where is it going?
So many of our customers, and I'll give you an example. We've got a customer, one of our reference customers, HS2. They need to be able to flex their IT really quickly and easily, depending on what they're doing, the projects they're working on, and that sort of thing. So for customers out there, being able to make the best use of cloud services, but also where they have to deal with security or data sovereignty or any of those aspects, having a hybrid infrastructure is actually, that's the norm now. And being able to run and being able to deploy these services and keep them under the governance, make sure that people are actually controlling kind of all the cloud infrastructures, etc., is paramount. There's also, if you look at those traditional infrastructures, they're about the kind of robust IT. They are about the things that can't fail. And you don't want to necessarily fiddle with them, but you need to be able to create the agility of creating new platforms, new things that you need to take to market as part of a business. You need to get the best of both worlds. And hybrid IT is really about providing the best of those both worlds and providing it in a consistent manner that the business can actually be, understand how it's deployed, understand the costs, etc.
Brilliant. And so who are the key players in the space other than yourselves?
So obviously, many of the vendors are kind of talking up hybrid IT at the moment. Many of our competitors are doing that. Also the hyperscale vendors. So, Azure, for example, are releasing their Azure Stack later on this year, and they've been dealing with the likes of Azure Pack. VMware have their own hybrid infrastructure, vCloud Air and the VMware on-premise. So, it's around in the marketplace, but how do you pull that all together across multiple vendors is I think important, and that's essentially where we're trying to make sure that we have that capability in the marketplace. So, we've got customers that have got services on Azure versus services, internally versus, they're also using Amazon. So it doesn't actually matter within that hybrid landscape. So I think many of our competitors they may focus on one element rather than trying to understand how a customer would actually be utilizing it. And that's kind of where we're trying to play. And
are you targeting any particular types of use cases? So, DR is a common one, or test and dev. I mean, are you focusing on any particular ones, or are you pitching it more as, this is a platform, it's an infrastructure, and you can really use it for whatever you need to?
More and more, it's a platform for enablement of kind of creating digital solutions. Yeah. More and more, it's becoming something which is about, and it's not just, we're talking to some extent around the infrastructure as a service layer. It's more actually about those other layers that are on top of it. So, be it Cloud Foundry or, some sort of API layers, etc. That is actually where we're starting to see a lot more traction. Mm-hmm. In the past, it's been the good old test dev. Yeah. It's been the good old, disaster recovery as a service. Kind of in the last sort of 12 months has been pretty key, and I think that will continue to be key. There's some difficulties there because, especially if you're going across platforms, making sure that you can convert back again, and you keep the resilient, the architecture in such a way that you don't kind of lose the information when you do that. So I think there's that will continue to be built and mature, I think. But yeah, it is about enablement. And that's key for us.
And what I really like about what you've described is the ability to shift.
Correct.
And to avoid not necessarily vendor locking, but cloud locking or prem locking.
Correct. And, one of the biggest reasons for using an OpenStack is exactly that. The vendor lock-in, it's still a technology, so you're still locked into that technology per se, but there's a lot of the APIs that are available that, can be used in the likes of, across with Amazon. That's why it was initially developed at the end of the day. But also being an open source platform, that stops that vendor lock-in, which is a good thing. And we are concentrating on trying to utilize many of those open source projects to be able to help with this enablement and provide the enterprise focus around all of them as well, which again is pretty key. So Cloud Foundry has become pretty huge for us.
In terms of the public cloud offering for K5, how would I as a consumer engage with you on that? So would it be an Amazon, sign up with a credit card? Would it be more of you sign up to a 1 year agreement? What are the options?
It's really focused on how we can help those enterprise customers make the best use of cloud. It won't be credit card. We'll have to vet a customer, who's going to be using that. But after that, it's pay-per-use. There's no contractual buy-ins or anything like that. If the customer wants to use it for a month, they can use it for a month. If, a day, an hour, whichever. Yeah. It's built on all the normal characteristics of cloud: auto-scaling, downscaling, upscaling, etc. It's all there.
Yeah, I think some of the customers we talk to like the idea of cloud, but they don't like the idea of cloud provider who you just sign up, buy your credit card, and they're very much a black box. And if you've got any issues, that's something you deal with. The enterprise ones in particular want that sort of overlay. They want someone engaging with them to help guide them along the way. And it sounds like that's what you're
absolutely
targeting.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's other capability which we've launched as well. So we've got the likes of our FCSM, which is our Fujitsu Cloud Service Manager product, which essentially gives us the governance and control over multiple clouds. Mm-hmm. So when the customer does want to utilize public cloud infrastructures like Amazon or Azure, etc., but they want to give the developers the freedom to be able to go off and create things, but we can still pull those things under the governance and control. So we can understand where the spend is, and we can allocate it to a department, etc. So in those instances, we'll work with the customer to make that real. But K5 itself is used, is going to be something that you will still sign up, and it'll be
right. So if you've got a customer and they have a dev team that have just been using Amazon for the last 5 years, and they don't necessarily have to convince them to throw it away, you can bring that under your management.
Correct. So we can bring that under the management and then provide K5 as the runtime environment for all of that sort of infrastructure going forward, which is enterprise grade. And most of the enhancements that Fujitsu have done has all been about creating that enterprise capability. So where there's been elements of the OpenStack infrastructure that can't cope with certain failures, we've enhanced those elements, and we're committing those back into the code base as well.
In terms of your public offering and the data centers, where are your data center locations, and what's your sort of roadmap for expanding? So
we actually are live. We are live. We're live in Japan. So we went live in Japan towards the end of last year. That's been matured over time. We went live in the UK on the 20th of July. Yeah. We're deploying into Finland and into Germany as we speak. So we'll be going live in those two locations toward the end of this year. We'll also be deploying to Spain and North America. And there's plans for Malaysia and Australasia as well. And then from then onwards, it's how we expand into other areas. Yeah, we're not sitting on our laurels. We are very much investing in this and deploying it globally.
Brilliant. You've talked a lot about enterprise grade. What about those that are listening that think, I'm an SMB, I'm a medium size, maybe even a large? Is it still relevant for them as a platform?
It absolutely is. So especially when we talk about the public cloud sort of capabilities in there, very much relevant. Again, been able to, I think relevant in two areas. Number one is, having a platform that you're not tied into, again, in terms of that OpenStack variant, but also been able to then offer those wares up to other customers. So, there's a lot of, and we're working with a number of different sort of small and medium-sized companies to understand how we can actually bring those into almost the marketplace of offerings that we can take to market. So very much still relevant.
Just to dive into that, what would be the sort of minimum? I know you probably don't have a fixed number, but if I'm a customer with 20 servers or 200 or 2,000, if I've got 20, is this something would make sense for me, or is it kind of more the 200 servers or maybe 500 users? What's the kind of...
So I think in the past, we probably would have said, we're going to go with something which was slightly larger. Mm-hmm. But if I then talk about the cost base of the platform in a public cloud, we will be promising to keep in line with the hyperscale vendors out there. And it's not always Amazon. It could be IBM Blue Shift. It could be whoever else. But generally the hyperscale vendor. And in some instances with the smaller machines, we're actually going to be cheaper. So
you've also got that overlay of the Fujitsu overlay of the guidance and all your services and your other support.
Correct. So there's nothing stopping an SME coming on board. I think you probably find that the overlays of the other capabilities we put on top of that for some small SMEs may be too much. We've got to realize that. Yeah. But no, I mean, we've got. I have a customer at the moment which I'm running on one of my clouds. It's 68 servers. Yeah, it's not massive.
But sometimes if you've got 68 servers, you still might be a hedge fund with a lot of very important 68 servers.
Correct. So, yeah. Exactly. So those, that 68 servers, and that, that's research. Those are, pre-prods and etc. So the infrastructure they're running is essentially a website going out. It's not a big environment. So we do, it's not as though we only take on 2,000 boxes. Yeah. There is a bit of a scale here.
Okay. And what sort of benefits have they seen out of the service in terms of dealing with yourselves?
So that customer will hopefully be moving on to K5. They're actually running on our S5 platform. I went to go to see them, and it was quite interesting. And they said that in the 4 years they were running on the S5 platform, they hadn't had a downtime. Fujitsu, and this is kind of the Japanese heritage, when they commit to do something, they tend to do it really well, and they put all into it to make it actually real. So, we, and that was the whole mantra behind the kind of enterprise grade. We want to make sure that this environment stays up, regardless of what happens. And we've designed it as such. And that's what's become really important for those customers. I think what we haven't been able to do in the past with those customers is keep in line with the functionality.
Right.
Okay. So, we may not have been able to evolve and create every single bells and whistles that are out there, or even keep up with some of the other technologies. Deploying it as an OpenStack platform with the other components that we've got on top of it is about, addressing that and keeping in line with the way the market will be developing in the future.
Let's explore that a bit in terms of the way you see things developing and what's coming through the pipeline, to the extent you can share it. What is coming?
So I haven't spoken about the other components on the platform. We have, the first release, which went live around about the same time in the UK, is the PaaS layers. So we'll have by standard Cloud Foundry on the platform. We'll have, we did an acquisition of a company last year, a company called UShareSoft. And we've developed, using their software and their capability, as well as some of the Fujitsu IPR, we've added some ability to essentially create applications and manage application sets. So it's kind of that application as a code. So a set of applications, it could be X number of servers, etc., all as a single entity, and be able to actually start to manage that as a single entity. So we'll be deploying that on the platform. That'll go through iterations. So the first release, obviously, it only supports a certain amount of operating systems, but it'll expand over time. We also have a development platform, which is for legacy type of applications. It's Java based, but it's based on our Java Glassfish development platform, which we have in Japan. And it can scale pretty large. One of the largest customers in Japan that they're using this with has about 30 million lines of code. So it kind of can scale. Yeah. So yeah, some really good. So those are those. We've also partnered with Apogee around the API layer. And there's some other up and coming things around Akamai with CDN, and then all the other normal components on the cloud. So, be it DNS, etc., all of those sort of components. So that comes with release 1. As we move on, we've also then got things like our our AI platform, which Japan have been using. And we've been rolling that out globally, a platform called Zinray. And there's some really good use cases that our research and development have been using for that. Analytics platforms that we've been rolling out onto the platform, analytics and big data platforms, and IoT. So there's a lot coming.
Let's touch on that last one. I presume you mean Internet of Things.
Yep.
And how do you see that developing? That's an area I'm quite interested in.
Yeah, so we've developed capability and actually had things taken to market already around the IoT platforms. We've got a bit of a use case around some of the water treatment elements. So there's a company in Japan which we kind of use as a reference around IoT, and they actually resell their IoT platform out to the marketplace, and they use that to do, for example, testing of water clarity. But essentially, it's the other person that's developed it using the platform and taking that out to market, and they use that in the likes of China. We also have, in our IoT platform, we have the well-documented connected cow, which is how we use the telemetry that we enable as part of the connected cow, a cow which has a kind of an IoT device that allows us to actually then look at what's happening around that, looking, what their menstrual cycle is, when they're ready to be milked, etc., and provide all of that about how can we then enhance the production of the milk and production of other elements around that. So those are the types of things we sort of focusing on. There's quite a long list of there's a connected dog as well that's been launched in Japan. So lots of interesting things, and it's those sort of things that I think are the way I think we're quite different. Whether we've actually been able to focus on certain industry sectors and actually really understand how we can take and use technology to benefit that technology sector.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of innovation other than, we're talking about boring old cloud. It sounds like there's a lot of innovation on top. So I guess if you're a customer thinking about cloud, but you want to take some innovative approach, then you guys can help with them.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what it is about. As I said, it's the platform we see as the enabler.
Yeah,
the platform's not, yes, we're selling the platform, but it's the enabler for being able to create these new types of services and the new markets and create that competitive advantage for a customer and for their industry and where they want to. We've got a lot of new players in the industry that have changed the way things have happened. So a lot of our customers need that supporting infrastructure and that enablement to make sure that they can keep competitive as well as create new services going forward. And that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. For those who'd like to find out more, we'll obviously have your contact details in the show notes.
Yes.
But, where can people head to find out more about K5 and the other products? So
we'll be, obviously there's a marketing campaign around this. So there's what we call K5 You Can, and there's a lot of information around that. So obviously our website will have all the information around K5 and the architecture, the PaaS components, etc. So that's probably the best place to start. There's a lot of information that's going out on the likes of Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. So there's a lot of information there. We have our world tour information that we've had in the last few months. So there's information that's been released as part of that. That includes videos, interviews to show the types of things we're looking at. And then we'll have our Fujitsu forum towards the latter part of this year. I think it's September, which we'll then be showing the next revisions of what's actually happening. So any of our customers, we generally bring them to that, and they can have a look. So lots of different places, and obviously, through my contact details as well.
Excellent, thank you. And in closing, gentlemen, do you want to tell us a little bit about the partnership with Xtravirt and how the two businesses are working together for customers?
So for us, Xtravirt has been helping us, and it's about a lot about the knowledge and expertise that they've had over the last number of years. We have come from quite traditional backgrounds, and we need to be able to utilize companies that are continually learning as partners to really help us and help us create and look at the knowledge, and then look at the creativity side and actually look at how we can actually use that going forward.
Yeah, I think what we're very good at is transformation, getting people into the cloud, and I think that's where it works really well. You've got this great new cloud platform, but what we've got a lot of history doing is getting people from where they are at the moment and doing the whole transformation process, looking at the whole approach of it. How do I transform my workloads? What workloads do I move? And just the whole getting from A to B, and that's where I think it fits in really well.
Brilliant. Guy, Pete, thanks for joining me.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ollie.
That brings us to the end of another episode of Cloud Insiders. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. And to find out more and access show notes and downloads, head over to cloudinsiders.fm. You can track us on Twitter at Cloud Insiders, and we'd love you to leave us a review on iTunes. See you next time.